Hello, and welcome to Policy Analysis. I'm Dr. Carl Snook, and I'll be your instructor for this course. And hopefully we're going to have an interesting and informative semester. You're going to get an opportunity to work with a policy area that hopefully interests you very much, and we will attempt to help you by learning some of the techniques and the process of policy analysis. So as you look at the things that you're going to attempt to do this semester, the main focus is going to be to teach you how to do a policy analysis. And we're going to look at issues ranging from policy problems, how to address policy problems, but also to look within the framework of political, technological, and organizational feasibility. If something's not possible, if an alternative can't be done, then it won't be done. And I think one of the things that we really ought to consider is the effect of events such as presidential elections or the lack of technology or some of the great advances in technology, everything from AI all the way up to rocket technology. We see spaceships being cut in by huge towers and things like this. And you say, well, how does this translate to the world in which I live in today? So you'll have an opportunity to bring that to bear in part of our assignment. But also, I think that one of the things that will be very useful will be a little bit of an introduction into the professionalization process in policy analysis. This is a course that ideally will prepare you to engage in an activity that is highly sought after. It's recognized generally as a methodology in much the same way as the research methodology that you learn in courses, other courses that we have. So what I want to do is I want to take a moment and I want to go through the syllabus and talk to you and highlight some of the more important aspects, but also to, where it causes us to lead into another idea or concept or something that we're going to be talking about later in the course. I want you to get a little bit of a heads up right now. I am eagerly working to update our course a little bit this semester, but at the same time, it's very similar. Unlike a class on elections that might have some new unforeseen idea every 2 years. Some of these ideas in policy analysis have come down from economists and political scientists and sociologists and experts in business and organizational activities for many years back. And I'm going to try to mention some of these people to you and strongly encourage you, if you have an interest, to go a little bit deeper. And I'll suggest some books that we're not going to actually need to read for the course, but that would probably make you more informed, especially if working for non-governmental organizations or think tanks or even businesses that engage in research in the policy area later in your life. So, needless to say, I think that one of the things that you should pay a lot of attention to is when can you get in touch with me? And this being an online course, I've decided that the primary way that I'm going to engage the course in office hours is online. Now, I will be on campus this semester, and so if you need to get in touch with me and it needs to be a face-to-face meeting, that's something that can be arranged. But what I would hope that we would do is we would start with an email communication and work our way to this. If we were in a face-to-face class, you would probably quite often come down to the front at the end of class and you would ask me a question. And I would eagerly answer it, right? I'm a nice guy. And so probably the email is the thing most like talking to your professor at the front of the class at the end. The thing that's like going to office hours can be Teams meetings. Obviously, we'll have to be a little bit more aggressive in what we talk about via email, but also we can, if necessary, talk by phone or talk by Microsoft Teams. Those would be my favored ways to do this. I would say many students send me messages through D2L, and that's not my preferred method of communication. My preferred method of communication with students is through my campus email. That's csnook1@kennesaw.edu. You can, if you're looking at the syllabus, there's a clickable link for that. But, I prefer that we don't work through D2L. It's a little bit clunky as far from my perspective. I do encourage all of you to meet with me at least once during the semester. There's no minimum number of times, but I strongly encourage it. There's also no maximum number of times. Never assume that you're asking me too many questions, right? The reason I teach a course like this is that I enjoy talking about public policy analysis. If I didn't, I teach that extra American government class. It'd be a little bit easier. But one of the things that you should know is that I've made a commitment this semester to improve communication. And so at any time, for any reason that you need to talk to me, be sure to just send the email. We'll get something either set up or maybe we can address your problem via the email. So let's talk a little bit about where your grades come from this semester. So a lot of your grade is going to come from written communication. One of the advantages and disadvantages of online or distance courses is that you're not in class answering tough questions and discussing interesting topics, right? So the way that you do this is that we will have you post discussions from several prompts during the course. I'm trying to teach you a method of this type of communication called the reaction paper. And there'll be some instructions on how to write a reaction paper. But in essence, you start with a summary of what the topic is, and then you move to discussing a key point or selecting one or two ideas that you want to amplify. Make sure that in the first module, the Getting Started module, that you look at exactly how to write a reaction paper. We'll have a personal introduction. I want so badly to get you writing in the beginning that I'll let you write about something that you should know better than anything else, you. And so in doing so, mostly just a chance to give everybody the opportunity to create a class community and also to give me an idea of the topics that interest you as we're working forward for selecting a topic. Maybe your first important assignment, and it's not worth a lot of points, and it's also not something that you're unlikely to not get a perfect score on, but it's the policy question assignment. And by the beginning of February, I want you to know that at least the topic and the problem that you're looking to address in the course. Because the longer that you wait to know what you're writing about, the more difficult it is going to be for you to actually do a good job. A lot of the grade in the class is actually between the policy feasibility paper and the policy analysis paper is a third of your grade. So in order to do the research that you need to have done by May, it's important that we get you started in the beginning. We are going to have a midterm exam and a final, and these are just, hopefully they're not difficult. They're going to be open book and open note. You're going to have several days to work on them. And the idea is not to force you to study and study and study or to trip you up. The idea is to tell you the most important things that you need to know and make sure that you are where you need to be in terms of your knowledge. If not, you'll have a couple weeks where you, 1 week and then another week where you're doing an awful lot of research and learning a lot of things that you should have learned earlier. But if you've been keeping up, the goal is that you won't have very much problem at all. I will keep track of course engagement. I'm expecting everybody will log into the course at least once or twice every week. Know what's coming up. You're responsible for any announcements. And so you can't say, well, I didn't log in that week because I didn't know that there was anything I needed to know. Expect that if you had a class, I would be making announcements all the time about opportunities to learn, to go to meetings and things, but also where I would be making slight changes and explanations about what's coming up in the course. So if you look through all of this, you'll know that, 90%'s an A, 80%'s a B. I don't round off. So, if you 90% of 450, you just subtract 45 from 450 and you get 405. That's what you need to get an A in the course, and it's really my goal that the vast majority of us get an A. In my success, right? There's nothing I would like more than to have the director of the School of Government and International Affairs say, Carl, they'd say, Carl, why did you give everyone an A? And then I'd say, you should look at these papers. These are darn good students who've worked really hard. And that would make me proud. It would make you proud. So why don't we set as a goal that we all get A's in this course? Obviously things come up, and if it's something beyond your control, I encourage you greatly to contact me. I'm hoping that nobody has anything bad happen to them this year, but inevitably, whenever you have 35 people come together for the same project, people have their challenges. Things like netiquette and technical requirements and things like this are all listed in the syllabus. One thing I want to say right off, we are a political science course. I don't know if you in particular, some of you are and some of you aren't political scientists, but we're a political science course this semester. And so I encourage you to use the American Political Science Association style guide, but if you don't want to, it's okay. You can also use the Chicago Manual of Style, which is a very similar style guide that is very common in the social sciences. We don't use APA, but we don't hate APA. They're one of our friends. But I strongly encourage you not to use MLA style. We aren't English majors. Well, maybe you are. But then you'll get an opportunity to learn something new and different. If you happen to be an English major, send me an email. We'll talk. However, I think that teaching students to use the APSA, American Political Science Association, or the Chicago Manual of Style is an added tool that we're going to use this semester. I feel like that you should want to use the style that I'm recommending, right? Um, and so that's what we're going to try to do. I often tell a joke in class when we meet face to face that at Kennesaw State University, the Berlin Wall literally stands between the social science building and the English building. And so perhaps that should be our reminder that we're two separate places. I very much think that if you're working on this class in an orderly manner, that you should probably be spending in the neighborhood of 10 hours, right? If we were taking a face-to-face class, you would be in class for 3 hours and you'd be studying for 6 hours. They always say 2 hours for every 1 hour of class time, so maybe 9 is a more fair average, right? There'll be weeks when you don't have anything like that much, but you also have weeks when you're working on papers. So anyway, that's what I view as being a typical amount. Um, you know, if you feel like you're getting behind, if you feel like the workload is too difficult, feel free to contact me. Um, I really, uh, I really don't see many students that tell me that there's too much going on in the class. I think I've dialed this in pretty well. Obviously, you want very much to turn in the assignments on time. I have a late paper policy you should look at. Obviously, if something comes up, ask for an extension. Um, you know, it never hurt to ask, right? When they always say, when you don't ask, the answer is always no. But maybe more properly is when you do ask, sometimes the answer is yes. Yes, we can work out some plan. But, in truth, there is more responsibility to taking a course online. If you're taking a class face to face, then, things can be spoon fed to you in a way that they aren't. Although, I've taught this class both face to face and online, and I think by the time somebody gets to be a junior or a senior in college, they become rather adept at working on their own and knowing when they need to ask for help. If you feel like that's you, then good. But if you feel like what you need is more explanation, then I'm willing to do that. I have no problem whatsoever with that. Um, I do have a couple rules that maybe aren't rules for everyone. But I do have a rule that I very much want you to turn in an assignment that's unique to the course. Uh, different professors interpret this different ways. Some professors will say that you're self-plagiarizing if you uh, turn in two papers for a paper for one course and a paper for another course. I don't philosophically believe it exactly like that. The idea it's not a published paper, but at the same time, if you learn something, a paper is actually a joint work product between a professor and a student, right? You have the assignment, you have been told of different books and materials, you often bring in class lecture, and so then to expect that the paper to expect that the paper in one class should be exactly the same as the paper in another class is it's kind of cheating. It's certainly taking a giant risk to assume that it's going to be okay with both of your professors. And since some of the professors in this department do have a problem, I've just set the rule that you cannot do a paper that is exactly the same or substantially similar to a paper for another course unless you have the permission of both me and that other instructor. If you do, I will certainly ask that there is some element of the paper that is unique to my class. If I haven't gotten that message, and then, the turn it in app tells me that your paper's exactly like a different paper you've turned in, then you haven't followed the directions in the course. So that's something that maybe you haven't thought of before, and I strongly recommend that you bear that in mind. The answer isn't always no as far as doing the same topic, but the answer isn't automatically yes either. I would also say that I will remind you many times this semester that a paper in a course is really very much like an essay examination. If you write a paper for my course and you don't bring in any of the concepts from the course, no matter how good the other research is, for one, you're not going to be doing a policy analysis. You'll be writing a paper about a policy, but we are learning a specific technique. And in doing so, you should try very hard to make sure that that you do utilize the concepts from the course for doing this. Some elements will be it's not completely different, but don't expect that the paper that you wrote for 2280 or some similar course is going to be exactly the paper that is okay to turn in for this course. The style, the same. Now, what I've done is I've set up the topics that you can select. It's just impossible, right, for me to be an expert in every possible policy question. If you ask me about issues like climate change or the Ukraine war, or those would be two great examples. They interest me, but I don't kid myself that I am an expert. I'm not an expert on American foreign policy. I'm not an expert in science. So what I've done is I've tried to make myself conversant in a handful, actually 22 topics. And I spent a fair amount of time during the last year in reading up on these topics so that when you are writing about something like extending MARTA, or you're writing something about building college football stadiums, or you're interested in park management. Well, these are things I've read about. So maybe I can be helpful, but certainly I can give your paper a fair grade. If it's a topic that I know nothing of, then I guess it becomes sort of a crapshoot on whether you're able to pick a topic and say something that sounds plausible. But that's not going to be your life and your career as a policy analyst. You're not going to be spending all of your time talking to people who know nothing about a topic that you're just trying to get one over on. In fact, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be giving your expertise to people who want very much to know more, but already know something. So you should look this first week, and I'm sure you'll find one of the topics to be interesting. I've tried to look through a range of topics, everything from endangered species to trash collection. There's a lot of different things that you can look at and learn a little bit about, and that I can be helpful with you on. But remember, the main thing that we're trying to do in the course is we're trying to utilize the policy analyst's tools to solve the problem. So let's look at the schedule for the course. Now, what you'll see is that the course is divided into 9 modules, including the started module. The Getting Started module is the only one that we have during the semester that is only 1 week long. And that's because we want to actually get started, right? So we'll spend a week learning about what the course is going to be, learning who I am, learning who each of our classmates are. Then we're going to transition into learning as much as we can about how to do the policy analysis paper. And that'll start on January the 13th. But after that, you'll get an opportunity to look at the textbook. The textbook for our course is the Bardock and Patashnik book on policy analysis, and it is very good. I've been using this book for several editions now, and I think that it tends to improve over time. And he's primarily trying to give you tools for doing policy analysis, but at the same time, he presents it in a way that's very approachable. There'll be other books during the semester that I'm going to borrow from, and so you'll want to pay a lot of attention to the lecture. I'll usually give you the information that you need to find the book if you have the desire to read it in more depth, or maybe you're saying, well, Dr. Snook, come on. You don't really believe that that book means that, do you? And, well, I do, or I wouldn't have told you. But anyway, the Bardock and Patashnik book, A Practical Guide to Policy Analysis, The Eightfold Path to More Effective Problem Solving. And you'll note that I talk a lot about the importance of problem solving, is very good. Now, I recommend you utilize the Day 1 access. It's very useful to you, but it might not be horrible. It's not a very expensive book. If you feel like at the end of the semester that it's been useful to you, it might be a good buy. You can get it. You can get it used, probably for about $20, and maybe you just write it down and you say, when I have some money, I'll buy it. But there will be several other books. There's a Michael Munger book that I don't utilize anymore because it's actually a 2000. He published it in 2000. And so every number, because of inflation, seems incredibly small. But at the same time, he presents ideas in a very clear form that I really recommend. And we have a lecture that he gave that's going to be part of the course material, but I'm also going to borrow from that book for a lecture or two. We have we will talk a little bit about Deborah Stone and a book she wrote called The Policy Paradox. She also has a very interesting book out called Counting Now. She's very much someone who questions the standard process of policy analysis. And there was no way that I could get you to buy the one book and the Bardock book and have it be affordable. So we're not utilizing the Stone book this semester, but it's very good, and I highly recommend it. You could probably get an old edition of that book, probably for less than $20. But it's a classic in the field, and so I will probably be holding it up in front of me at some point in the semester and say, hey, if you ever have the chance, get this book. And there's about 4 or 5 other books like this that I'll mention in passing. We'll have some articles that you'll be able to find through the library, either ProQuest or JSTOR, without much trouble. And we'll have several videos to watch. And I don't know, it's always hard for me because these are the kind of things that I might watch for fun it's 9:30, everybody else has gone to bed and I can't sleep, and it's like, aha, this is a really great book by um, you know by was it Ann Schneider, that I think you should all read. Or hey, look at this. This is a Barbara Sinclair book that maybe you should know more about. And anyway, if I think or I see something that I recommend to you, I'll recommend it to you right in the video. So I encourage you to look at these videos as you progress through the course. So Module 3 is going to introduce you to Bardock. 4 and um, 4 and 5, we're going to be looking at the Munger book some. Then back to Bardock for some of his problem solving. All as we work toward making sure that your paper can be its best polished self. Anyway, there'll be a lot of such videos like this, and I'm already starting to get a little bit on the long side. But if you have any questions for me whatsoever, maybe you feel all of a sudden very lost, what's going to become of me after what Carl has just said, then feel free to contact me. I encourage you, don't let 2 weeks go by where you're lost. Don't let a day go by where you're lost without contacting me. And we'll get through this together. There was I once was watching, I can't remember the guy's name, the guy who was in Ben Hur, and he was also in Planet of the Apes, and all of a sudden it's like right when you want this to come to mind, it goes, and it's gone. But so anyway, he was saying that as he was about to film the climactic scene of a chariot race in Ben Hur, he went to the stunt coordinator and he said, "I find that I can get the horse to go a little bit faster if I lean into the turns." And the stunt coordinator said, "Stay on the chariot. I promise you'll win the race." And my story for you is, hang with me. Do the work in the class. Do your very best. We'll get through this. We'll get through this, and in the end, you'll have a tool, you'll have a skill that will serve you well. And I don't know, unless you cheat, unless you don't do the assignments, I promise you'll get through. All right, good luck, and next week I'll have another video, a little bit shorter and a little bit more about how to write the paper. Good luck.